I'm going to start off by introducing the characters in the story. The first character is Phil Jacobson. He is a slave owner and owns about 30 slaves and a small unkept farm. He is very abusive to his slaves, and his farm is unkept due to his alcoholic ways. Next we have Michael. Michael is one of the strongest, most hardworking slaves on the farm. He constantly motivates all the other slaves, and he tries to look at the good side of everything. Then we have Bill. Bill is by far the smartest person on the farm, and he's also a slave. He's constantly deceiving people, making them do work for him, and trying to find ways to escape. Then we have Jackson. Jackson is by far the second smartest person on the farm, and tries to use his intelligence to benefit the farm by making inventions that can benefit it. Then we have Sally. Sally is always by Phil Jacobson because Phil Jacobson likes Sally as a slave and always gives her special treatment. Then we have Francis. Francis is almost a news spreader and gossip rumor spreader all across the farm, and he constantly makes up rumors and lies about everybody and everything. So here I'm going to list the two farms. Number one is Jacobson Farm, and that is owned obviously by Phil Jacobson. Then we have a neighboring farm called Princeton Farm. That is owned by Matthew Henderson. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more about Jacobson Farm. Jacobson Farm is a smaller farm, and it is unkept. And it's unkept due to Phil Jacobson's alcoholic ways, abusive manner towards all the slaves, nobody wants to work. It's just all bad. Then we have the neighboring farm, Princeton Farm. And that is a much bigger farm. It's like 5 times the size, and it's well kept due to Matthew Henderson's kindness towards the slaves and benefit towards it in non-alcoholic ways. So this story starts off any normal day. Michael trying to cheer everybody up, even though the work's tough and Phil's not helping. He just keeps working. Bill, obviously, hiring people to do his work while he finds ways to escape. And he is also one of the only people that can read and write, what uses his advantage when he tries to make plans. This didn't last long due to the fact that Phil Jacobson is constantly on everybody's tail and whipping and being abusive, working or not. So later that night, Bill got to thinking, and he tried to make one of the best plans he ever could on how to escape. So he called a meeting that night and got everybody in there into the barn to make a plan. So the plan was to sneak in to the house at night by one person, trying to be as loud as possible so Phil comes down. Then everybody else takes him on while someone goes and grabs the guns that he has laying around everywhere inside the farm. And that worked. So the next morning, after Phil had been taken out, they decided they needed rules, and they called these rules the Constitution. Rule number 1, everyone is created equal. They didn't want anybody to be left out, so they made everybody equal. Next, torture tools are prohibited, and they did this because they wanted to lose all sight of the abusive manner of the last slave owner. Next, they have everyone contribute what they can and get only what they need. Rule number 4, killing anybody at any time from anywhere is prohibited. Rule number 5, any leader whatsoever is prohibited. Once again, they wanted to lose all sight of Phil Jacobson. Then rule number 6, freedom of speech. They wanted anybody at any time to be able to speak what they wanted. And for a long time, this made people really happy. Except for one person. And that one person was Bill. And Bill was sad because he couldn't tell people what to do. He couldn't bribe people to do work for him. And the worst part of all this, it was his idea to revolt and to make this society. And this made him really mad. So he got to thinking. And he was trying to think of ways where he can convince people to let him be leader, even though that's against the Constitution. So he decided to go talk to Sally, and Sally was a mother of 3 slaves, and one of them was younger than others, and the other 2 were twins. And he said he needed these people, and these people were called the lifelongers because they've lived on the farm all they wanted. And he said that he would educate them. On the other hand, Jackson got to thinking of ways he can benefit the society, such as horses, clean wells, and anything else. And he knew this would take a lot of time. So this was the first time Francis did anything to benefit the society, and that was to create a flag. And this flag consisted of a darker skin-colored hand and a lighter skin-colored hand over a green background that represented the earth. And Sally was very sad because she no longer got special treatment, so she went on to Princeton Farm. And yes, she left the lifelongers under the hands of Bill. And as Francis was looking to try to see where Sally went, he saw something shocking. He saw a group of 15 white men with guns running straight at the farm. So this threw Jacobson Farm into chaos. They got all the guns they could and anything they can do to defend themselves, and they were planning on it. They got all 4 corners of Jacobson Farm covered, and they just waited until the white men came up, and they had an all-out war. And this lasted almost 2 hours, and there was 5 casualties on Jacobson's side and 15 on the other. And this broke rule number 4, what was killing. And nobody had any idea until Michael brought it up. So Bill and Francis decided to blame this whole thing on Jackson. And they did that by saying, as Bill was trying to go up and confront the men instead of shooting, Jackson was trigger happy and started shooting anybody who he saw who was white. And this obviously wasn't true due to the fact that Bill had fired the first shot, so nobody knew that. So everybody voted to exile Jackson. And this came to a unanimous decision, and he was exiled. For 6 years, all problems were because of the so-called Jackson. They said anything that went wrong was Jackson's fault, even though he was no longer on the farm. The lifelongers at this time were 18, 22, and 22. Michael was constantly working harder than everybody else. For 6 years, people could not read, including Michael and all of the other slaves except for Bill. So Bill made something for everybody, and that was freedom for all. And that was their slogan. Bill slowly became leader, what broke rule number 5, what prohibited leaders. He became in charge and he used to say guiding others is what he did. He didn't do labor or anything. He guided others and educated, even though they didn't really see it. And that broke rule number 3 and rule number 1. So, as Bill was slowly becoming leader, he was also slowly becoming abusive, especially with the lifelongers at his side. And as they became bigger, stronger, and older, they became more and more intimidating. Young, healthy, and very intimidating. They always had his back. So, Michael and the peers remembered one thing that Bill said early on when he was in the barn, and that was, revolution is the only solution. And that's exactly what they thought after an abusive leader, so they knew what to do on this abusive leader. So, the plan was to take all the food during the night. They started to eat it because they had poor eating ways in the first place due to the fact that they didn't have a lot of food that Bill was giving them. Next, they wait until morning to be confronted by Bill. Next, one person runs inside, grabs all the guns that they did have stored away, and they tried to arm them all down by making them stand down. And this worked. So, instead of killing them, what they didn't want to do, they exiled him. And they exiled Francis, Bill, and all the lifelongers. And nobody really knew what to do after that. They didn't know whether to get a leader or make Michael their leader or not have a leader. They didn't know. So they ended up needing support, and Michael took the position, promising to not be like Bill. What is very ironic to the fact that they've had two leaders after another that were completely abusive. And this proves that it went in a big cycle of abusive leader to revolution. Hope you enjoyed. I'm going to Interstar. It's introduce, Daniel. What are you doing? I'm going to start by introducing the characters that are going to be most frequently incorporated throughout the story. Number one is Phil Jacobson. Phil Jacobson is an abusive slave owner who has alcoholic waves. What? Waves? Come on. Waves. God. The lifelongers at these time, really? These time?